Hello. So this is the introductory. So you've tried the water breathing thing video. Um, so what's going on? So this is happening kind of fractally within the body. You could think of this as one of the singular air sacs in the lungs. It's like having to inflate, but also just in general, it's the body's having to inflate. So the water pressure is squeezing you in from in every direction. So the basic exercise is to create inflationary pressure against that that pressure. That also makes your body sink and float, though, right? So when you're in the water, there's a couple of different things that you can control. One is your buoyancy, and then the other one is, and then the buoyancy is directly attached to how much pressure you're accepting. So you can link your flotation to how much pressure you're accepting, and gain control over your buoyancy in the water with your breath. That's kind of what you're doing in the background all the time behind any sort of particular skill activity. So it's sort of, very rapidly, whatever it is that people do, like yoga or qigong, or they go, oh, I did this practice and it radically transformed my being, or I had some peak experience, or I started feeling my body as energy, or any of these other strange events. It makes all that stuff kind of easy peasy, so it'll just start happening. I've never done it for a long time with anybody that I haven't been in extensive dialogue with. It just does a lot. It reframes a lot of things. And it makes some very advanced states of mind and very advanced postures, you can just happen upon what's normally very deep stuff. And there's something about it, that normally deep stuff is done by feeling really subtle, nuanced things in the water of the body, and then having it on the outside basically gives you a lens or a magnifying glass, or it's a corrective lens for proprioception. So high levels of athletic skill depend on increasing amounts of proprioception. So most of the time people are just really good, but when you do stuff like yoga, you're studying your athletic vision itself and trying to make the vision itself so that your talent increases, instead of just doing an activity to try and get better in activity. It's like when you're just doing an activity and training, eventually you'll plateau. When you plateau at something like a sport, when you plateau, at that point you have to start doing yoga. You have to somehow increase your base attributes to get to the next level, to get to where those other guys might naturally be, or where they figured out how to get to. And so that's yoga. And then that game of how do I correct my sight in terms of how I'm interacting with the world, or how do I increase my feeling sensitivity, or how do I engage with even more of my being, or all of that becomes very obvious with the water. It's like a lens for that. And the way that it works like a lens is because it's your whole body is a lens. You're taking in everything. So it's your body's taking in energy, information, sensory stuff from the world. It's shaping it, it's focusing it like the eye does, and then it's kind of landing on sensory absorption areas like the back of the eyeball. So the eye, to form an image, you can't just have a photoreceptor. You need a lens. the world has to be focused, right? And then so it has to be focused into a particular shape, and then that particular shape is what gives the image meaning. So the light has to come through a lens. So there's just energy from existence, all the light, sound, air, water, if you're in it, whatever, that's coming in, it hits the body shapes it, it somehow distorts it, absorbs it, bends it, warps it, like the ear, like the eye, the body, it's just, we're talking about touch, it shapes everything, and then it gets received by the nervous system. Like the light finally gets received at the back of the eye. So your sense of touch basically comes in through the body, it is shaped by the body, and then it hits the nervous system. The sense of touch is, people are so misshapen today that they're very, very energetically nearsighted. So the breath is not the correct shape. And so the sense of touch doesn't go out past the body. When you're in water, the sense of touch is immediately rectified, and then you can see much further past the body. The sense of touch is supposed to be visual and going out. Not visual, but like the same depth, same distance as vision or sound. Like the sense of touch is supposed to be that much out there. And the modern world has made everybody like super nearsighted, just the same way that everyone's nearsighted visually. So when you get into the water, you can, it's obvious in the ocean, go out there and look, and you can feel the wave. You can feel a wave 2 waves over. You can feel somebody else breathing 5 feet away from you. You can feel people moving. You can feel big undulations way out, and with your sense of touch, you can know what the water is doing, dozens to hundreds of feet on either side of you. The sense of touch spreads out easily, and if you can't do that, if you were just thrown in the water and made comfortable, like given the scuba gear or just given the hose or whatever, you go out and relax. If you're not worried about drowning, throw you in there, and you'll realize that your sense of touch is like, whoa, I'm seeing actually pretty far with my sense of touch. The water immediately rectifies it. So the hosing allows the sense of touch to be rectified while you're breathing, similar to how you're breathing on land. And then you can even go through the nose. And so that with the sense of touch rectified, your vision of yourself will change quite a bit, potentially, right? It's like it's fixing it inevitably, like the instant that I started doing it, it started fixing like just incredibly deep things, just from having that sense of touch is a lot of what I'm calling noetic vision. And so it's you almost just, you forget you have it. So like when you're in water and you're able to, with your sense of touch, like control your buoyancy, there's just a lot of very fine things that you can kind of feel down in there. And even if you don't study, I've only just now started working on this stuff directly. Like when I first started doing it, I was just exercising. I was like, holy crap, I'm weightless, it's heavy on my breath. Like that's a really cool, like, so I was like exercise withing it, and I was having these like spontaneous epiphanies as well. But I just exercised with it. So you're like in a weightless 3D Pilates machine. There's an endless number of rehab, prehab, spinal, anything. Like you can do all sorts of stuff. I've played with floats. You can get a 5-gallon jug in the deep end and a kettlebell and be like moving water and float against each other. And there's an endless number of physical games you can play with. But both with weights, just neutrally buoyant. But eventually I started to, really focus in on really paying attention to the breath buoyancy interface, and the water as silence, the water as awareness. Yeah, it kind of suddenly, like after a while, it dawned on me that I'm pretty convinced of this. That, like I think I could prove it, but it seems like water is awareness. So if you read anything about like in Buddhism or any sort of meditative thing, anytime somebody's talking about awareness, they're like physically talking about water, and then that awareness is the thing within which all the perceptions arise. Like you're aware of those clouds and your hand and your body and all that's happening in awareness, and that's all of this is sensory information. It's all in the nervous system. It's something happening in the body somewhere, and we know that it's happening because of the nervous system. At least the nervous system, like if you screw with the nervous system, it screws with perception pretty bad, and it screws with the sense of self, and screwing with the other organs doesn't seem to have that effect. So when we're talking about the perceived world, like we're talking about there's something that the brain's doing to the whole body, or the nervous system's doing to the whole body, that's resulting in the perceived world. And so everything that the brain is doing, that the nervous system is doing, is floating in water, like specifically in the cerebrospinal fluid, like floating. So these perceptions are happening enveloped in water. It's enveloped in awareness. Our perceptions are enveloped in water, like when we dissect it and we go, okay, like where are perceptions happening? They're happening in the brain. So it's some sort of there's some sort of electrical activity in the metabolism. That electrical activity in the metabolism causing the action potentials or their neuronal impulses or whatever is happening completely submerged in water. So like no matter what level we zoom in on it at, and no matter what theory it is of like, oh, how is this turning into like a electrical tape in my perception, you don't have to know that. We know that it's happening in the water. Like if you change if you put drugs in the water, it changes the perception. If you change the brain that's floating in water, it changes the perception. So we know that this is in water, and we're looking at it. And so yeah, I'm pretty 100% sure that water is the physical embodiment of awareness, and so all the electricity of the body and everything goes into creating memory and all these other things that the awareness can observe, that the awareness can experience, and then the awareness as a separate, isolated body is separate from that other awareness under there. But like whenever anybody looks meditatively, everyone finds this kind of like, who am I? Oh, I'm kind of the same awareness. Like the thing looking, the thing experiencing. It's water. And so the way that if you can use with your breath, you can learn to be at neutral buoyancy. So that's right in the middle of the water. That's simultaneously like fractally putting your breath like at the cellular metabolic level in the water. Like when you're at neutral buoyancy in this water, the longer you're at neutral buoyancy in a large pool of water, as you sit there and play with maintaining neutral buoyancy, like in a tub, or where if you could focus in, as you sit there maintaining neutral buoyancy, it's causing it, like it starts to, everything in the body starts to become neutrally buoyant. So the longer you're in the tub neutrally buoyant, you start getting like your nervous system starts to float, and then eventually you go all the way down to the cellular level or down to the organ level. So if you were in there breathing long enough at neutral buoyancy with the nose thing on, the thing is that this is like, you'll find moments where this is like incredibly peaceful, it feels good, and other moments where it's like, oh my God, this is the most suffocating thing ever, I'm going to die. And it brings up these like ridiculous fears, but the cool thing is like you're right next to the surface and you can just take it off and start over again. I think that's what happens when people maybe have bad trips or something doing meditation stuff, because you'll have some sessions where you go on and it's like, wow, this is great, and then all of a sudden it'll go south and you'll just be like, tremendous panic. And there's like, it's kind of like exercise, there's a little bit of like use in pushing through the panic, but yeah, it can provoke panic in these weird ways, but you're 6 inches from the surface in 3 feet of water, 2 feet of water, so it's easily rectifiable. But don't panic about the panic, I guess. It could happen. But yeah, if you're sitting there with the nose neutrally buoyant, like it's in when you're always neutrally buoyant, like, but as you feel it, you can actually become aggressively neutrally buoyant and sit there huffing, taking big old breaths and just holding you decide where your body position is in the water, and you're breathing heavily. And other times you could go, I'm not going to decide anything. I'm going to try and hold my body position right here via stillness. Whereas like if you breathe in, you would go up, and if you had you would fall. So you try and sit here and not breathe. But as waves go by, if you relax, and any sort of movement in the water will cause you to breathe. And then these are normally very advanced meditative states, but you could do this stuff in a couple of days or a couple of weeks or in one session if you were whatever. So it's a weird, most of the time when people are given access to potentially working on themselves to this degree, there's a little bit of a container around it. Like, oh, it's a wisdom tradition, or here's a school, or here's a thing where people know what they're doing. And with this, it's like, I think it's way, way beyond what anybody is doing. So as you do it, it's like, I think it's the coolest thing in the world, but like, I've been into this stuff my entire life. So I don't know what it would be like to be given casually, like, the keys to the entire, like, if you're even halfway smart, I'm like this, and you do this sort of thing, the keys to the entire wellness industry in terms of like the deepest, best, most advanced mind body connect, anything, you can have it in a matter of days, weeks, whatever. Like, it was a huge deal when I already had access to that stuff. So I don't even know what it would be like to like have a whole nother, you could have this whole other skill set in your life, and then suddenly have the lifetime of breath, meditation, focus, wellness, yoga, qigong understanding in like a couple of months or less. Because I just did exercises on this thing for years. I exercised on it for years before I figured out how to go inward with it. Even though it was having a tremendous inward effects, I wasn't working on it directly, so I would have, it would have been exercise then. But like with this, it's like, hey, this is like what I'm looking at now is like underneath all that, and then it's simple. It's super simple. Like couple days getting used to it, and then you'd be just looking for your buoyancy, or looking to reestablish the kinetic vision, so you feel what it's how do I feel, how do I relax when I'm able to look outward with my kinesthetic vision, when it's not just a sense of touch, when it's a sense of place, when it's a sense of space. So yeah, that's rough. That's all my thoughts on the water breath training thing. Like you can go deep with it. It's also just a really, really cool exercise. But I'm like, it seems unavoidably deep. Is the thing. I don't know, like, it's like you're working on breath with so much assistance that it's like it's impossible to not have these like cosmic reframings, and it's like, and then knowing what to do with it, or I don't know, maybe people don't care. Maybe it's fine, but Yeah. All right.